Right, a very good morning to you from wherever you're watching us. Welcome to the Leadership Challenge show. With me, Brian Alusam, standing in for Reverend Felix Kavoy. With me in studio is a political strategist and analyst, David Wamadu. A very good morning to you. Thank you for making time for us this morning. How are you this morning?
I'm very good, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
And based on the traffic in Nairobi, you've made it to the studios early.
Well, it is. You have to plan yourself well.
Yep.
If you have, because at least we understand what is happening in our city.
Yes.
Then you have to make sure that you wake up a little bit early for you to make it in good time.
Yeah.
Yes.
This morning we're going to talk about social issues affecting the country and also political and governors, and the president also had his first inaugural speech, and he literally opened the 13th Parliament. But before we get to that, let's talk about what people are talking about. People are talking about the cabinet secretary positions. When he was in the US, there was anxiety.
Correct,
and we could see that some politicians were coming out to just bashing him and telling him, Mr. President, you should have appointed CSS before going out. Now, what are you waiting for? But now he has appointed these cabinet secretaries. Now we are going to talk about these cabinet secretaries.
Correct.
Do you see these men and women as the people who will literally help him drive his hustler narrative and make sure that he liberates the economy? Do you see the men and women doing that who are now nominees?
Thank you very much for that. It's a great question, because I know that is what is happening right now.
Yeah, yes.
And I would say that it was true that he stayed for quite some time, 14 days after. It is quite a long time.
Yes.
Because we know that what drives the government is actually the cabinet.
Yes, yes.
And therefore it was necessary that he does it.
Yes.
Well, it has happened as you have said. And I know there were some few issues. Several people actually commented on some few issues. One is regarding to their manifesto, because there was a promise that he had made about 50% of the cabinet should be women.
Yeah, true.
He has tried. He has gotten to around 33%. And I believe that with time he would be able to build that. But having analyzed the people he has actually nominated for the position of CS, I think one of the things that is notable is that they are actually people who have been with him for some time.
Yeah, true.
So they understand his manifesto, and that is one great thing about them. It's that they are understanding their manifesto, and therefore it is easier for them to drive the agenda for the government. And therefore, I am confident that they would be able to do it. The other notable thing is that he has changed a bit from like the former regime. The former regime had always talked about technocrats.
Yes.
But right now, he has gone on more on political than technocrat. Though at least some of the people who are in the position nominated for CS right now, they are also technocrats. So they are technocrats and also politicians. And I would say it is an added advantage. True. And why is it that I am saying that? Is because Wajiko and the government, there must be someone who is going to be communicating for Wajiko. Yes. Politicians have a face in terms of the people down here, as opposed to a technocrat. Technocrat will just look at policies and they try to implement them the way they know how best to do it. But when it comes to a politician, he has a language, and he is able at least to understand the needs of the local mwananchi, and with that it becomes easier for them to manage even the country. Therefore, I am very confident that the team that he has chosen, it is actually going to be able to drive the agenda for the current government.
Now let's talk about the head of that team, the Prime Cabinet Secretary. And we could see that people coming out and asking, can the president be able to create a position by issuing an executive order? That has been the question. We've seen lawyers, different political lawyers and constitutional lawyers coming out and saying, the likes of Nelson Harvey came out to say that the president has a right. He can be able to do that. And that is what he did. Let's start with Musalia Mudavadi. Will Musalia Mudavadi help the president be able to run or coordinate the cabinet, because he is the liaison of the cabinet and also the president himself and also the legislators?
Well, I believe, let me tell you, when these people are actually coming up with something, they have already gone through the legal issues.
Yes.
So they understand exactly what they are able to do, their mandates, and what is not, they are not able to do. Therefore, I am actually on that school of thought that it is possible for the president to do what he has done.
Okay.
Number one, if you look at even in their manifesto, they had already said that this is going to be the lineup. There will be the president, the deputy president, and there will be the chief minister, who was actually proposed actually to be Musalia Mudavadi.
Yes.
And I can tell you the Musalia Mudavadi, many people are saying there could be a bit of a conflict between the deputy and the chief minister. But I also don't see any of that. It can be, it can happen, but I don't really think it is going to happen. Why is it that I'm saying that? The laws, and that's why I like what the president has done. He has made the laws to be very clear.
Yes,
I know there, yes, he has come from a place whereby these things were not being done in such a manner.
Yeah,
but right now, he has come and he has said, look, I want to make everything to be very clear to everyone that this is what you are supposed to do. One, the laws for the deputy president are in constitution. The laws for the chief minister have actually been put very well by the president. And if you look at the laws, he is more on policy than anything else.
True.
And also the other thing is, he is also going to assist. If you look at the wording, is actually assisting.
Yes,
so he can actually be told, you'll be sitting with me in this committee, but when I am not there, you are the one who is going now to assist on this and to chair all these kind of things.
Yes.
So I don't really see any confusion, and I think he is rightly where he is supposed to be. And I trust the capacity of Musalia Mudavadi.
And we've, on numerous occasions, since the moment he was announced, the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, we've seen that the President has been working with the two men.
Correct.
Each and
Correct.
every place he
That
goes
is
to.
true. That is
he
true.
was with them yesterday when he was having a meeting with the drought management and how we can help the people in northeastern. Musalia Mudavadi and Rigathi Gachagua were part of that panel, which clearly means that he shall be moving with the two of them.
Correct. That is, I think that is the thing, and I think that is one. I like the way, the style of this president. The president that we have currently is a hands-on. He understood exactly what happens, and in fact, even before they came to their manifesto, he had actually to understand the dynamics. And what he is doing right now, he is bringing his men together, and that is a very good skill. Bringing and creating teams, and that's why you can see he's moving with them, so that there is no confusion. Where Musalia Mudavadi is supposed now to action, he will be actioning. Where the deputy president is supposed to be actioning, he will be actioning. And therefore, I think we have the right government, and their structure right now is actually something recommendable.
And whatever is being showcased in the country is what he always said, that the period of conmanship in this country when it comes to politics has come to an end, and that is why he literally came out to show people that he is a man of his words. He always keeps his promise, to start with the senator and also the National Assembly and the Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Correct.
Now let's now talk about the docket that literally hold, that will be holding his government. We start with the held docket that is being headed by Susan. Looking at it at the moment, you see a docket that has to be very cautious, as Ebola is just knocking.
Correct.
Ebola is just knocking.
Yes.
Will Susan Nakamicha be able to literally deal with this?
The other thing is something I would want to just explain to the people. In every ministry, the only people actually who move are the top two, which is the cabinet secretary and the permanent secretary. The other people, all the other staffs actually are intact. The directors of each and every other ministry, they are there. And therefore, what we are saying is, it is actually something very small that changes in terms of the department. And therefore, you realize that because the technocrats, and they are the people who are doing the policies, the medical and all that, and they are actually intact in terms of the ministry, like now the Ministry of Health. So it is very easy for Susan to be able to move forward, because for her, she doesn't really need to be a technocrat. She doesn't even need to have gone to a medical school. All what she needs is managerial skills in terms of managing the department. And therefore, what her ministry now, I would say that it is easy for her if she has been able to deal with managerial issues. It becomes very easy for her to coordinate, because some of even the things she is going to say are things which have been looked all through by the team that actually is in that ministry, and therefore she comes at the head to be able now to pronounce. If she is actually able to understand what is happening, it will obviously be very easy for them. I think one of the easiest positions actually to manage in this country, not even in this country, is actually the CS position. And that's why you realize today you can be the Minister for Education, and tomorrow you are actually the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Why do they keep on shifting? Because it is more of managerial issue rather than just being a technocrat. So I believe she would be able, with the team that she has, as long as she brings the teams together, it will be easy for her to manage.
Now let's also talk about Mithika Linturi, who shall be heading the agriculture and livestock development. We are looking at a time whereby now Kenya is facing drought.
Correct, yes.
We are looking at a time that Kenya needs to increase its food production, a deficit when it comes to maize production itself.
Correct, yes.
And we're looking at a time whereby cartels are in the middle of this fertilizer subsidy. Will Mithika Linturi be able to help the president deal with the drought menace and cut off the cartels based on his portfolio?
Well, I think one of the things I would say, it is actually not easy, but it is possible. And I like when there is a support. The whole government is speaking the same language, and that's where their manifesto, one of the things that they want is actually to make sure that they bring the cost of production down. And therefore this is something that even when you look at the president himself, it is at his core. And therefore it is not only him who is going to manage and to handle this thing. It is actually the whole of the executive, the whole of the government is actually behind this. And therefore where he finds that it is becoming a little bit difficult, I know he has a bit of also support. You know, when the president and the CSs, they are speaking the same language, they can make at least a policy decision. They can make a decision and say, here we have to go after it in a difficult way, if it is difficult, and therefore we remove this. So far, I would say, in terms of the distribution, I know you have seen, it has worked. In terms of the pricing, it has worked. And therefore, I feel it is just a matter of making sure there is consistency. As long as he is going to be consistency and the government is going to be consistent, I believe that all these cartels, they will be out within a short time, because they are determined to ensure, because that is the core. Actually, let me tell you, all these things, even the cost of living, if we are able to manage the production, I can tell you we will be in a different place. Things are going to change. And therefore, I believe there is a lot of pressure from different quarters. There is a lot of support from different quarters. And therefore, because of that support, I believe it is going to be not easy, but it is going to work out.
Now, let's also talk about the leaders who are having the elective seats. We can say that they're members of the legislature. Now they want to be part of the executive, which clearly means that we are talking about Alice Wahome, Kipchumba Murkomen, and Aden Duale, who made it to the list itself. Now, looking at that, was it a wise move for the president to go for elected leaders, or could he have looked at other people who are technocrats to come and fill these positions, or retain some of those CS who are there during Uhuru Kenyatta's regime?
Let me tell you, in politics, there are some few things that you have to look at. Maybe let's talk about Aden Duale. You can realize that the area that he comes from was not an easy area. Actually, looking at Azimio was also very strong. And therefore, at that particular time, they required a strong person to be able now to make sure things are happening and happening right. Because, as even the president yesterday said, it was a highly contested, even the presidential and even the MP levels. And therefore, it was not easy if you really did not put the right person. some of these people, it is easy that something else would have happened. And you know, they needed the numbers. So they were also looking at who is quite strong in a certain region. And if they realized that Aden Duale, Murkomen, you can remember even there is a time people were saying Murkomen is going to be fraud down. And therefore, imagine now you have brought a newcomer who does not know the roots. What would have happened? It easily that you may have found that things have already changed. So I think they were also careful about what is likely to happen. And let me say also, in terms of looking at it from just a layman's point of view, you would say that they would have allowed like Murkomen just to sit and wait for the position. But they were also careful that they don't lose, because when you go to parliament, you talk about numbers. Right now, it would be easier for them to campaign for anyone and get the slots back. But there before, I can tell you, in fact, this is the only time. The 13th parliament is actually the one which has the highest number of people who have come back. If you look at 2017, they were allowed 140 MP who came back. Right now, they are allowed 198 who have come back. So you find that the people who are incumbent, they were very necessary at that particular time, because you can see for them to drive their agenda, they had to get very strong people. So I think that was the consideration which they made, and they realized on these regions we may need, because look at it, like Meru. You find like the current governor, he was actually independent. And she brought down some of the people actually who have been nominated.
Even some of who are part of the UDS.
Yes, correct, the UDS. So it was not something which was just like you are able to win. It was something that you could have lost. And therefore, I think those are the calculations which they were doing. And because, as we said, it is also necessary to have a political figure in the cabinet, I think those are now the considerations they made. But I believe it was actually well calculated.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but after the break, we continue to talk about the CS positions. We will come back and talk about the position that is at the heart of this when Kenya is facing high or hard economic times at the moment, high cost of living. Juguna Ndungu taking that, and also Simon Chelugui taking the MSMEs cabinet ministry. We shall get to talk about that. Will they be able to help the president fuel the Hassa narrative? See you after the break.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Are you a church, institution, or an individual looking to make your events, services, or commemorations memorable by capturing it on video or streaming on various platforms? EBN TV offers video production, streaming, documentary production, and scripting services. Get in touch with our sales team on 0740 653 453 or 0713 492 865 or 0721 936 847. This is EBN TV, transforming your world.
You have an opinion, we give you the mic. When you see us around your estate, marketplace, or home, we are here to bring you your stand.
Sasa sisi tungependa wafanye tu mambo ya maana. Angalau sisi vijana hata akifanya mambo ya maana tutarudi tu kumvotia.
Governance, politics, social and economic issues surrounding our nation.
Matarajio tunayo mengi. Tunatarajia alete mabadiliko. Kwa wakati huu, kwa sasa hivi maisha imekuwa ngumu.
Join me, Victor Nzabeli, every Monday from 8:45 p.m. to 9 p.m. right here on EBN TV.
You are not a mzee because your age says 60 or 70 or 80.
Yes.
You are mzee because Kalonzo has been around from 1985.
Yes.
Ruto has been around from 1992.
Yes.
They are the same age.
Biggest problem in Kenya right now, if you asked me,
Wow.
is not just, you know, that we have problems, but that we have problems with a more enlightened church that is doing absolutely nothing.
But guess what? I don't know whether she won or not, but she did win well, she's not the governor of Kirinyaga.
Join Reverend Felix Kavoy on the Leadership Challenge show every Friday from 7:30 a.m. Candid, bold, and insightful conversations. Welcome back and a very good morning to you. If you're joining us, this is the Leadership Challenge show where we get to talk about matters of governance, politics, and at the end of the day, it's about how the country is being run. Now, we're talking about the CSs before we went for the break, and with me in studio to just help me break it down and make it make sense to you is Pastor David, a political strategist who shall be helping me talk about these issues. Now we are talking about the CSS and some of the CSS who shall literally help the president channel some of his manifestos. Now let's talk about Njoroge Ndungu, who has now taken the treasury docket, and we've seen that even yesterday the president acknowledged that he inherited an ailing economy, and he has been the former governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Will he be able to literally help the president liberate this ailing economy?
Well, I thank you for the question. One of the things that I would say, treasury is very key. And I am happy that the president also realized that he cannot actually put someone who is going to learn the loops. Given the situation that we are in, a person who has been in the same docket would be easy, at least now, to forge forward, rather than the time you are saying someone is going to sit and start understanding what happens in the treasury. If you look at this gentleman, Jugona Dongo, he is actually a former for almost 9 to 10 years. He was actually in that docket. And if you remember too well, some of the initiatives that we are seeing right now, they were actually, they came about, the creations, they came about during his time.
True.
Even the issues we are fighting in Safaricom and all those things, they came actually during his time. So I would say he is a very experienced man. And therefore, when President was looking at how do I drive this, he really realized that there are some people who are skillful, who are having an understanding and the knowledge about the ministry, and it will be able for them to move forward without having to waste any time. And I think that is the reason as to why he has come. It is actually a difficult position, but I know from what the president talked about yesterday, because he talked about quite a number of issues. One, he talked about the debt management. He talked about the taxation issues. And you know, actually, where does the taxman report to? He reports at the central bank, you know.
Yes.
And what we are saying is, at the end of the day, he is actually the boss, even in terms of the taxations and all those things. And therefore, he understands even those elements. He knows what we can touch, what we cannot touch at the moment. And therefore, it will be easier for him to be able to move forward. And therefore, it is actually a confidence. I think there is a measure of goodwill in terms of what he is able to do. And therefore, I would give him a benefit in the sense that he would be able now to tackle some of the issues, the challenges which are there better than anybody who is a newcomer. And therefore, for me, I think it is a plus for him.
And now let's talk about the person who shall be driving the bottom-up economic model and helping the president help the medium and small enterprises. We start from the micro. Now that is Simon Chelunga. I can say that he is a lucky man because he has been retained by President William Ruto. And the president said that he will be channeling close to 50 billion Kenyan shillings just to ensure that the MSMEs get affordable credit. And we're looking at the track record, also the portfolio of Simon Chelungui. Is he the man to literally now help the president rejuvenate we can say the businesses that are being closed in this country? We'll be talking about that for quite some time. The youth coming out to say that I've opened my business, but I cannot access credit. After 2 months, the business is closed down. But this time, we have the cooperatives and the MSMEs ministry.
Well, let me start by saying exactly what you have said, that Simon must be a very lucky man. Out of all the cabinet secretaries, he is the only one who survived. I know they have a very great history with the president anyway. And by the way, we were in the same college with Simon. So he is a man that I know. So I know him quite well. Simon, I would say, for me, from my opinion, I know he has been in some ministries. He has staged also some ministry devolution. He was there. He was in the labor and all that. But I would say that looking at it, I think he needs to move with a little bit of speed. For him, even in terms of the other ministry he was, I think he was, and that is according to me, I think he was not well felt. I don't know your views about it, but I think in terms of the CS, you know, the way you talk about the super CS.
Yes, the super.
I wouldn't really rate him as a super CS, and I'm sorry to say that because it is my opinion, and therefore I feel that the president may have really to exert. You know, that is the core. By the way, for Kenya Kwanza, that is the core.
Yeah, that is the core.
Because actually, if you look at what he is doing, is what is driving what you are saying. The bottom up, it is actually going to be driven from there. And therefore, I think the president really has to do quite a lot in terms of making sure that really happens. Because I feel Simon may have to pull up his socks a little bit. He is, I know the president from his wisdom, maybe there is what he sees in him. But I believe that looking at his track record on what has been happening, I wouldn't rate him as one of the super CS.
So based on how he has performed before heading to the ballot, and say that we will have a review of this. And during his inaugural speech, after he was sworn in, CBC was part of that speech. He said, I'm going to form a task force. We're also looking at a point whereby we're going to have a double intake in 2023, and also the classes are 98% complete. And some of the those who are tasked with constructing these classes are coming out to say that we have not been paid. And Ezekiel Mochogu is inheriting, we can say that a ministry that is in the public, a ministry. We've seen parents coming out to say that yes, we need a review. This CBC is not for the students but for the parents. We've also seen that Kupet coming out to say that let this CBC be scrapped off. Now it will be a litmus test for Ezekiel Mochogu, who is a former DO. Do you see him literally getting to where Magoa, son of Magoa, literally got to?
Thank you for that question. I can tell you, again, from where I sit, if you talk about the former regime, some of the super CS, one of them I would rate it as Magoa. He is a guy actually who worked and who understood his portfolio very well.
And from time to time you could hear him saying that I don't want to get into politics of this country, I just want to work.
That is the thing. Actually he is actually a very focused man. And I know some of the things he has done, there are changes that he has done, and they meant well. But maybe there were some few difficulties. One of the things that, and we can, because we are talking about CBC, we can actually ask ourselves a question. Some of the children that we have, they are not A students.
True.
And they will not even understand mathematics too well. But when it comes to working with their hearts, they are actually very endowed. And therefore you find that for you to gauge a student by one exam, For me, I think it is something that can be unfortunate because let's say, for example, the time you are sitting an exam, you could not be in the right state of mind. You could be unwell. Maybe you could not get the school fees and you are sent away for some time, and therefore you have not been able to cover the curriculum to the head. Then you are actually going to be measured by one exam. And that we say this one did not pass, they flopped. So I think where they came from is actually saying, why don't we build something which is going to be based on the competence of the students? So those are actually the lines of thought that they had. The only thing that is a bit of a problem, I think it was rushed. And they did it in a hurry to be able to bring it in. So the participation was not very good. In terms of what you are saying, sometimes the parents, they don't even understand the CBC. Sometimes a child will come with a homework and they cannot even be able to work it out. And you know what happens is that you are required as a parent to be able to assist. Some of the parents, they did not even reach where the students are, even those classes.
True.
So how do they actually help their students, you know? And that it is why it is like becoming like a teacher. It is like a parent who is in school and not a child who is in school. What I would say, for me, because there is that committee that is being formed, and they will come to the people and ask, what I am seeing the end game for CBC is that CBC has good elements, but also it has some elements which are not very right. Therefore, what I am seeing is there is going to be improvement of the current curriculum and the CBC. They take what is good in the current, and they take also what is good in what they are introducing in CBC. That's what I would say they should, the direction they need to take. And then they bring together all of them so that the disadvantages, because everywhere, some of this curriculum that was there before has its disadvantages, and this one has advantages and all like that. And therefore, for them to make it work, they really need to look, what can we do right now? What can't we do right now? Then the other question we need to ask ourselves. A child started with CBC.
Okay.
You come and scrap it at this level. Which exam will this child sit?
True.
So you see, there is a lot of confusions.
Yes.
And therefore, I believe that as the people participate in this, there will be a solution. But I don't really think making a drastic move is going to help, because you are going to disadvantage very many parents and very many children. So it is something that really need to be handled. But I can say CBC cannot stay the same way it is today. There are some few structural changes which may have to be done. And now the other current regime, program also needs to be upped, in the sense that we are measuring children according to their competence and potential. That's what I would say.
And we've also seen that the president said we are not going to scrap it. We're just going to create a task force so that it can pick, as you have just said, the negatives and the positives of CBC itself.
Correct. That is true.
Now, there is another docket that I'm so passionate about that is currently ailing, bleeding on its knees. That's the youth affairs and the sports and the arts docket that has been tasked to Ababu Namwamba. Ababu Namwamba is taking the docket at a time whereby youths are employed in the country. We are looking at it whereby now, in terms of football, Kenya has been banned by FIFA. Any activity in the country is not recognized by FIFA. We are talking about infrastructure in terms of stadia. We've seen that we missed out when it comes to CHAN, when it came also to Africa Cup of Nations, and also the championships by IAAF. Will Ababu Namwamba be able to literally build this docket that is messy at the moment, for lack of a better word? And we're looking at it, and the president has tasked a man who was also in this docket before. In 2013, he came up with an act to streamline or to make the sporting activities in this country to go towards the right direction. But this time, he's taking a docket that is literally rotten.
I'm telling you, I think looking at all the position, there is the one for the youth, the sports and arts, and there is also the one for interior and defense, and now this one, the treasury. You know how things are. I can tell you some of these dockets are quite difficult. And as you have actually started by saying, it is something that really needs a lot of effort. It is not something that Ababu is going just to get in and be able to work on it. Here, he needs a lot of, actually he needs several hours. Actually for him, I don't think he is going to sleep. It is not where we were saying about the other departments. Here one, as you said, the youth, and even in terms of, you see, being banned and all those kind of things, there are a lot of things that he really needs to bring back for these actually to be re-energized and for people to feel there is something to do with youth. One, in the first place, can I tell you, and I think it is something we did not even say there before, in terms of the cabinets, some of the things even which are there, again, the other issues, is that people are actually asking themselves, where are youth in terms of the CS position?
Yes, yes.
And I think that's why they were trying to argue out that Ababu is actually a youth. But who is a youth? Is actually someone, in terms of the constitution, is actually between what? At least not above 35.
Yes,
is
true.
Ababu 35 or above? And therefore, you see, the thing is, those are some few questions. But I feel that it is not going to be an easy walk. It is something which is going to be quite difficult. Ababu has actually, in terms of networks, right now, you know, he has been in quite a number of ministries. He was in the same ministry. He has been in foreign, you know, country in terms of in terms of exposure. He has quite a bit of that. But I feel that if he doesn't rise to the occasion, it is not a very easy thing. And let me say that the youth, and maybe one of the things, and that is what we said, 22 million are registered as voters. 14 million voted. 8 million did not vote. Who are these who did not vote? Those are the questions that we need to ask about. And I can tell you, just when I was doing my analysis, I realized most of the youth did not vote. Why? It is because they are feeling, whether I vote or I don't vote, I don't see any change.
I don't see a representation.
Yeah, that is the thing. And therefore, I think for Ababu, it is one of the positions. If he is to make it, he has really to move extra mile. There are several things which he has to do. There are several, he has to appease. And also, you find even the sports, there is a lot of politics. So for him, he has to manage the politics and many other things. So I would say that is one of a difficult position, at least in terms of the CSS. I would say for Ababu, it's one which is a bit difficult. But with goodwill, I think he can manage. But he cannot sit and watch. He has really to make himself dirty for things to happen.
As Pastor David says, that Ababu Namwamba will have also to deal with the politics in sports and also help the youth. Now allow us to take a second breather, but after the break, we'll come back and talk about integrity issues of some of these CS nominees. See you after the break.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Are you a church, a pastor, an apostle, an evangelist, or a teacher of the gospel? Broadcast your sermons with us today. Contact EBN TV sales team on 0740 653 453 or 0713 492 865 or 0721 936 847. Book with us now and enjoy great discounts. Welcome to the EBN TV family. This is EBN TV, transforming your world.
God is saying, I will give you, I'm moving you. I am a God of small beginnings, but I'm also a God of one glory to another. So when you begin in small beginnings, it doesn't say that you have to stay in small beginnings. It says beginnings are only small. And he says, I see your end shall be greater. That means I'm taking you to the place of the great. Somebody shout hallelujah. Tell a neighbor, the season of small things is over.
Are you a church, institution, or an individual looking to make your events, services, or commemorations memorable by capturing it on video or streaming on various platforms? EBN TV offers video production, streaming, documentary production, and scripting services. Get in touch with our sales team on 0740 653 453 or 0713 492 865 or 0721 936 847. This is EBN TV, transforming your world.
Right, welcome back and a very good morning to you if you're joining us this morning. This is the Leadership Challenge show where we're talking about what is the talk of town in the country, the nominees of the CS positions. Now we're going to talk about the integrity issue. We've seen some of the Azimio leaders coming out to say that half of the cabinet nominees have integrity issues. And I'll start by Aisha Jumo, who is the nominee of the gender CS. And at the moment, she has a case, an active case in court. And we've seen that some of the leaders in the Azimio now, they're taking these up and say that we will make sure they don't get into, they will make sure they don't get this position simply because they see them and they came out and said, and in quotes, that they are the mafias. That is what they said.
Thank you very much for this question. It is a good one. And I know in our constitution, integrity is very key. A whole chapter, that is chapter 6, it talks about integrity. But I may say, there is what we say, and it is actually said that you are innocent until proven guilty. That is our law. And therefore, some of these things that people will keep on talking about, there are so many people. Actually, in Azimio, in Kenya Kwanza, all of them, they are actually in the position. Some of them now are in parliament.
Yeah, true.
Even for Azimio, they have integrity issues. Some of them are in Kenya Kwanza, as we are saying, and they have integrity issues. But the question is, at what point are you proven to be guilty? It is when you have gone through the whole process, and after that, the court of law pronounces that, David, you are guilty of this offense. So these other things right now, they are just things that people talk about. And I would say integrity, and I would pray that Kenya actually uphold the integrity. But you see, the thing is, some of the leaders that we have, Kenyans, sometimes they don't care much about integrity, which is a very bad position, because we are the people who are putting the leaders there. Other people that are being put, they have been there. But the question is, in terms of like when it goes to the nominees, you know, they are going to vet the nominees, I think within the next 7 days or 14 days, and they will be able to vet them. But can I tell you, yesterday, if you looked at it, what did you realize about the president? The president actually want also to be very good to the members of parliament and the Senate. Some of the things that the court has pronounced that it is unconstitutional, they are the same things that the president is also trying to push. And he says, for example, the CDF. It is something that they are saying we are now changing it to NGCDF. And the president is saying, I am going to push for these things to be in place. You know what I mean say? Some of these things that you are hearing, different camps talking about, they are only talking about because, you know, they want to be relevant, they want to be felt. But I can tell you when it goes to parliament, people vote differently. People support whatever they want to support. Even the president is actually looking for the support. And some of these, I can tell you, will come here another day after they have vetted. Can I tell you, all these people, even who have integrity issues, you will actually find that they will not even drop even one name. And that is how the parliament acts. They actually look at their own interests. And that's why you remember there is a time
what those nominees bring on the table.
Yeah, that is you remember there is a time that we were being told some legislators they were being given 10,000 inside the toilet. You remember the former regime?
Yes, yes.
That there were people who are actually being enticed to vote. They were even given. Can you imagine a registrator being given a 10,000 to change their decision? And that is where we are saying that is already an integrity issue. And therefore what we are saying, Kenya, we need to rise a bit in terms of where we are. Because it is not only from one party, it is not from only one coalition that we have some integrity issues. Integrity issues is almost everywhere. And it is a bad position, but I can tell you it is something that we have to break, but it is hard. It is going to be a process in breaking. So expect to see Aisha Jumwa continuing in their position. Expect to see Moses Kuria continuing with his trade. Expect all these guys to be there. It is actually an unfortunate position, but I think that's what we have for the moment.
And there's also a saying that they always use in the August House. It's about what is under the table, not on top of the table. So what are you bringing that is under the table that will benefit me as a person? And that is what they will do. Now, this brings me to my next question. Do you see all the nominees getting through to their respective positions?
Actually, that is where we started by saying these guys, it is only, I think, and I want to see, and I would pray that I see a change. This process of vetting, for me, it is just because it is constitutional, it is just a process for them to pass. That when they tick, they say we have already need. I am telling you, it is going to be very difficult for anybody to be dropped. I am telling you, some of the people, you see, even during the time of Jesus, there was Jesus and Barnabas. What did people say? We want to release for us who? Barnabas and let Jesus remain at the cross. I am telling you, the integrity issue started a long time ago. That people know this guy is a thief. But they are saying we would rather be with a thief than someone who is actually going to speak the truth and change the nation. And that is what is happening. All these guys, you know, right now already the president has actually rallied these guys together. And you know, it is on a common front. The common front of they want the money for CDF because it has already been scrapped by the court, the Supreme Court. So they are all speaking the same language.
At this time.
Yes. And you see, that is what happens actually even before they make the final call. As you are saying, there are so many things under the table, which is unfortunate. And that's why if we are not going to have our politics based on integrity, we are likely not to gain in a very big way. But I can tell you, integrity issues is one of the difficult things that the president has to deal with. One, if you look at the deputy president, is he having some cases? Very many.
Very many.
So look at it in terms of where do you start? So that's why I'm saying he is already the deputy president. Yet he had so many things which were happening in terms of cases. It's so many other things. So what we are saying is it is unfortunate. You can remember actually Azimio tried to drive it even during the campaign time, but really did it yield much?
No, it
didn't yield. That's why we are saying we are in a position where Kenyan's politics need to change into integrity issues, whereby we have institutions. Do you know actually what we should be saying? The institutions which are mandated to look at the integrity, they would be actually be coming and saying, look, this person has integrity issues. This person cannot vie for this position. But once they vied, and they were actually approved that they should vie, then from there it is very difficult for you to change.
So at the moment it's just cross-checking. Was it a tick? Was the tick big enough? Or
That's
was
what
it
I
small?
feel.
If it's small, we just add a little bit for it to be big.
Correct, that's
And
what
that
I
is
feel.
Now,
Yes.
let's talk about those who missed out. Those we can say that they were close allies of the president. The likes of Johnson Muthama, the likes of Jospat Nanok, and Dr. David Ndi, Okoth Obado, and also the likes of Hassan Omar. Do you see that there could be a division in the Kenya Kwanza team? Or well, the president recently said he literally asked the head of the public service to literally include the CAS positions that were created by President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Correct.
Now, does it mean that even if they've missed at this juncture, then the CAS position could be going to these people?
Can I tell you, the good thing is what they say. The government is very big. Right now we are talking about 22 and actually 26 because of their devisers, like the likes of Monica Juma who have been put. So it gets to 26. 26 in a whole country where we are 50 million is actually very small. It is actually very small positions. So what I think is, look, there are so many other positions which have not been announced. And I can tell you there are people that you have mentioned there, like people like Omar. For sure, he has to get a position. He did his best. There are people actually who will eventually still will be able to get positions, but I think it was limited in terms of the positions for the CS. It was actually limited because he could not create more than that. But you see, right now as we speak, the PS positions, as you have rightly said it has not been given out. There is actually the CAS. He wants to actually he wants to do more than what Kibaki's government did, not Kibaki, Uhuru's government did. So he is increasing some few numbers. There is ambassadors positions. They are quite actually. If you look, there is the chairman. You know, the parastatals and all these kind of things. So I would say that the numbers that are in Kenya Kwanza, for him to be able to absorb them, it is not a very difficult task. And I believe within a short time, you'll be able to see him pressing them. Because some of them are quite skillful. Like Omar is a very skillful person. And therefore, I am finding that he cannot be out of the government. So I believe within the next 2 to 3 weeks, you will be able to see some of the names that you have mentioned actually being somewhere in the government.
And now, as we wind up, in regards to the presidency of William Ruto, as per where you stand, where you're from, how do you see it weeks after he was sworn into office? Have you seen some changes in regards to how the leadership of the country is being taken? And there's word in town that when he took the preachers to Parliament, and we've seen Kenyans saying, Mr. President, you've got it right. That is where we need prayers, because that is where all these issues to do, as you said, integrity comes from. So, Mr. President, let's start with praying for the National Assembly.
Correct.
Now, as per his we can say that his time in office, have you seen some change or how Kenyans are at the moment?
Actually, I think we are moving in the right direction with his presidency. And I would say why I'm saying this is because there are some few things that he is quite powerful and he doesn't fear. Actually, that is one of his needs. He doesn't fear what people are going to say. As long as he is doing it for the Kenyan people, he is ready to go any mile to be able to work out. Let me say, you see, like now, if you fight some of the things, and I have seen some of the farmers, I have heard and I have seen some of the farmers are quite hopeful. And they are saying if we continue the way we are continuing, there is possibilities we will be able to produce. You find there is something that he has said, and even yesterday he said, look, we cannot continue borrowing. He is very firm on that position. And he is saying we are living beyond our means. What has he said yesterday? He said we are coming to the parliament and we want at least every ministry to work it out so that we reduce our budget by around 300 billion. You saw it yesterday. So what he is saying is, look, this we cannot sustain. There are some few things in the ministry we have to do away with, because this is where we are. And I think if we can be saving like around 300 billion every other year, what does that translate to? In the 5 years, it is actually 1.5 trillion. So what does that do to the Kenyan economy? The other thing why I believe that this president will be able to work, and he is determined, let me tell you, there is one area where it was a do or die. And many people actually saw it, and they did not know how to handle it. The issue of subsidy. You are subsiding, you are looking for monies, the debts, and you are paying for consumption. You know, people did not believe it, that he would actually come and say, guys, this subsidy is not a way to go. It is something that if he is not a very strong leader, he would have said, fuel is rising from 140 for diesel to 165. It is too huge increment. But you see, Kenyans, they have been made to trust in him, and they have been made to understand, look, this is only for a short time. We are trying to make sure we get out of the subsidies, and we are able to make the economy bring the prices down. Some of the things that he is doing, they are not very famous. They are not making him very popular. But you can see even when it is not making him popular, he is able to start on the same. And therefore, for me, I think there is a ray of hope, even for the Kenyan people. Kenyans are feeling, let's give this man like the 100 days. There are quite a number of things that are going to change. The other issue he said, and they are going to take it shortly to the parliament, is actually about the 50 billion. So you can see in terms of his manifesto, he was not just putting it there for the sake of it. He was putting it there because he knows this is what can be able to bring Kenya to where it's supposed to be. And therefore, for me, I think so far, letting him, I would rate him very highly. And I am confident. You know the good thing with him, actually, he understands what he is doing. And that is the good thing about it. So there is no CS who will come and cheat him. He understands. Actually, he has a hands-on. And therefore, for me, I think he is a man who is determined to make sure that things change in this country. Therefore, what I have seen him, the small things I have seen him do, I think he is a man who is able to make things happen.
And when he was meeting the CEO of Safaricom, KCB, and Managing Director of NCBA Bank, he started by telling them that I'm representing hustlers who cannot have a meeting with you, who cannot get to your offices. So I'm here. Now let's talk about that before we close. The issues to do with Fuliza. And he told them boldly that it was part of his campaign, and it was a popular word during that time. Could the president's words during the campaigning period could have told these CEOs of Safaricom, KCB, and NCBA, it's about time you do something before you receive the wrath of the president? And he just told them, I was to meet you people, but someone could have leaked that I was going to meet up, to have a meeting with you. Is it a good move? As it stands at the moment, issues to do with Fuliza itself?
Actually, let me tell you, these are the moves that the president is doing, and actually they are bold. And can I tell you, if you look at the Kenyans people, why are they going to Fuliza? It is because, one, they cannot access credit. They do not have any way to grow their businesses. And you go and you get some, maybe 1,000. You know, it is not a lot of money that people go to and get. But look at the kind of the interest that is levied on them each and every other particular time. And you find that even if you are in that business, sometimes you are only in a cycle. You are only selling, but really all your money goes to the multinational. And I believe what he has done is something which is actually commendable, and it is going to help the bottom people. And I think that's why I can say, in terms of his what he put in his manifesto, he is actually moving with his promises. And he is moving in a very good way. To the extent, if, for example, the interest is cut by 40 or 50%, what does that mean to you? It really means a lot. Because these people, sometimes they make like 100, 150. If, for example, the interest, they were taking interest, maybe 75. Now it gets to 30. What does that mean? It means that they have at least an extra 40 shillings, which can be able to help them even to buy something.
True.
So what we are saying is that this is actually a move in terms of empowering. Because can I say, building the economy is not going to be built from the top. Building economy can only be done from the bottom, whereby we make sure that, you see, like the triangle, we have a triangle. The base is actually one of the foundation. And therefore, if you can be able to handle the base, it is going to move, rising. You find people moving from one level to another level, and this is the only way of creating wealth. What he is doing now is actually creating wealth among the people. And therefore, these are some of the things I'm saying. For him, it is actually something which is positive. The other issue is the CRB. He talked also about the CRB, and he said, look, you have actually blacklisted my people. And you know, he is speaking for the common man. Yeah. And he is saying, look at how many people. Some of them are university students. Surely they went and they actually got visa and then they could not pay. Then they were blacklisted. So they cannot access any finance anywhere. And he has a very good plan. And he says, look here, why don't we go to scorecard? Whereby if I pay, at least in terms of the interest, my interest can come down. If you don't pay, you are going now to survive on a higher interest. So it is upon me to say, well, let me, because I want to be in this rating and to make sure my interest, when I'm being assessed, comes down, let me also try and pay. But don't blacklist in the sense that we cannot access the funds. And therefore, what he is doing, even in terms of the 50 billion, this man is actually trying to create this base. And if he can be able to create this base and everybody is actually able to produce and make money, I can tell you, even the saving, he's talked about the saving. Yeah. He told you for every 2 bob that you save, the government will give you 1 bob to a maximum of 6,000.
Yes.
So look at the way he is trying. You know what he is trying to do? He is bringing in the saving culture. Because most of the people did not. So he is enticing you because he is saying, put your money and I will put your money. Because he looked at it and said, well, for 30 years, if you have been paying like NSSF, 200, at the end of the 30 years, you know how much money you have actually said that from the NSSF you'll be having is 72,000. And those are 30 years. So what he is saying is, why don't we empower the people so that they have the savings and they will be able to do great things. So I think, looking at the whole, even the socio-economic aspect, this man understands what he is doing.
And about the savings, he said that saving 200 bob every month, he termed it as a joke. And
it is.
And he said that it's about time that Kenyans embraced the saving culture. And that
Correct.
is the